Are we live? Yes, we are, but I'm not seeing anybody. So I'll wait and I'll do an operation, much needed operation right here. The usual one. Let's see if I can do this. Let's see. And I'm seeing you, Julieta. Welcome. One more time. Let's see if this works right over here. I'm waiting. Maybe some internet issues. Let me wait a little bit more. Please be patient. Hold on just a moment. Almost there. We are almost there. Almost. I'm only going to wait another 30 seconds. If not, we will go forth. Yes. Yes, okay. Looks like it's possible now. I don't know. Well, this is the internet is needing some time, some extra time. Let's have patience, because we need to have that. Yes, patience is a major virtue, major skill, major life ability, for sure. So, almost, I believe so. Really? Will it be? Well, looks not. Let's start. Good evening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for stopping by. I will talk about the purpose journey. That's the theme we are going to talk today. And we are going to address it in two major perspectives or points of view. The first one is the toolkit that I use in providing my services to people. We will use a macro view, so we will see things from a major distance, because it's I can't talk about all of it right now, and I don't want to bother you. I want to give value, real value, real meat for you to take and put into your own considerations around purpose, not some hard selling type of pitching. So I will do that, and then I will talk about my own references onto my own purpose journey from these last years till today. In fact, see, the first one strikes me as having almost 20 years of acknowledging. So I will do that, and let me check, because I believe I can make some operation needed right now, or not. Let's continue this. The main issue is around the books. Those were my favorite purposeful journey books for myself, Julio. Not only the journey type of books, which they are onto this pile that I have here with almost, I don't know, almost 14 books. I made a selection because there are much more books to put here, but I had to make the selection, and I make the selection connecting the books with my own life path and with my own, of course, with my own service to people. And I will justify why I love these books and what they can do for you. So let me make the operation right now. Looks like I'm able to do so. Yes. Looks like it. And yes. Just 1 second more. Yes. Well, that was hard today. Okay, done. Let's focus right this moment. The main issue around the purposeful toolkit for the purpose-driven professional that I am, for me, is this: to have a grasp, the most complete grasp possible about the unfoldment of life purpose as such, at the same time pinpointing the specific points to the best of our ability that are transition or turning points, like Mr. Gladwell, Malcolm Gladwell, spoke about in his book, the Outliers and The Blink. There are the two books of Mr. Gladwell, but I will not digress. In order to having that full, broad perspective on unfoldment of purpose, pinpointing the points, the turning points of purpose, and having the right skill set in personal and human development terms, then we can make a difference in order for purpose to happen. And so the main representation I bring about this, about my own use, for my own use, and that I give to you, is the pyramid of archetypes coupled with journeys of unfoldment and my own counseling and facilitation around those. So the four purpose archetypes that I consider are those of the Mr. William Damon, that is the researcher from the Stanford University, because he made a wonderful study that I believe that applies to all types of purpose endeavor. And so he identified four major life purpose archetypes. The first one is the disengaged archetype. The second one is the dreamer's archetype. The third one is the dabbler's archetype. And the fourth is the purposeful archetype. So let's talk about very briefly about all of this. The first one, the disengaged archetype, is the, like I've told in our lives, is the I don't care purposeful archetype. This is the people, I don't know, I don't care, I don't really like my job, I don't really like what I'm studying, what I'm doing in profession or outside profession. If I'm unemployed, I'm with my TV remote set in my hand, or with my Facebook apps or Instagram or whatever, and I'm spending my time doing nothing that matters to me. Just passing time. Just strolling around, or just making things that make me more or less pleasurable, more or less not bored. That is the type of life of the disengaged person. It's the person with the I don't care type of attitude, and no hope of having different. At least to the point of not making anything to change the condition in more active terms. And so the people who are disengaged, until life shakes them, or until a crisis come up, or something more drastically seen as such, they tend to just stroll, and we'll see what happens. And so then, of course, life throws some curveballs, like they say, and people went into crisis, and people start to consider their situation, and they get onto their knees, so to speak, and then they find some answers, and then they tend to, when they find some mild answers, they tend to shift, if possible, to the next archetype. And what I do in my journey number 1 with people about discovering, finding purpose, is really to make people change from this type of archetype of the disengaged that is unsustainable, to the second archetype, and then beyond that. And the second is the dreamer archetype. The dreamers, the people who are in this stage, they suddenly access different, creative, positive possibilities that light the flame, that kindle the flame inside of them. And so they start to see big possibilities, they dream, they have big imaginations, they see things ahead with greater hope. They stop being disengaged from the reality, and they started to going for getting those tools to change those. That's the point where I'm at 2008, more specifically, when I unleash a sort of vision for my life at the time beyond the financial consultant that I was, or financial auditor at a big four company. In that time, I unleash hope from a dream, a big dream that come up, and so I decided, no, I go towards, I will go try to find how can I do this better, what are the odds, how can I, and then another stage unleashes, and then in shifting, in changing to that archetype, the dabbler's archetype, that's when another type of journey of facilitation is needed. That is the transition type of journey. My journey number 2, transition. Yes. And these points, making a parenthesis, these points are what Mr. Ken Wilber calls fulcrums of development. They are the make or break type of stage or step onto the development process or cycle, if you prefer, and they assure or deny success on those stages. So we start being dabblers, which means that we start really testing onto more practical terms. At least that's my definition. I believe Mr. William Damon has a little bit of a difference of a definition, but my definition and my practical and experience brings this onto the definition, which is an explorative, playful, and learning by doing lots of stuff type of stage and archetype. And so the dabbling archetype and stage, it really is a very, very important archetype. Which is critical in this success stage is that the dabbling has practice in it. It's the thing that I'm repeating onto the other live transmissions. I'm stressing this point very much around. Please put your ideas into practice, test your ideas onto the ground, prototype, experiment, because if not, you are only daydreaming and you are not getting feedback from the real world, and you can't build not much around those. So the third one, the dabbler archetype, is very, very, very important, and it's assured in my work for the journey number 2, which is the transition journey, which I also called in another Facebook Live the second discipline. The third one being the discovery discipline. In fact, we are coupling the discovery of the journey number 1 into more practical, deliberate, and life-sustaining terms onto the second journey. We are going to go a little level up on the assets from the journey number 1. And so when we have our fair share of dabbling, and now we have a full pattern recognition set into our lives, into our own wants, interests, passions, abilities, gifts, now we are ready to go for the 4th archetype that I have already spoken in the past, which is the purposeful archetype. We feel full of purpose, we feel aligned, we feel connect to our very best, and then we strive for more results, for excellence in whatever we are doing. and that's the role, that's the goal of my facilitating onto the third journey of purpose. It's the journey of excellence, the journey of making things better by making better things. Like Mr. Seth Godin says, it really is the purpose, the main purpose, the meta purpose of this stage, of this archetype, and of my facilitation around it. It's the purpose of making better, purposeful things, of putting consummation onto the creative expression that represents our own truth, which is by definition a life with purpose. And so this is what I try to do. This is what I really do with my clients. And this is the thing that I invite you to do for yourself. Find what is that you want to connect onto these archetypes and do that. And of course, if you want to connect a facilitator, purpose-driven facilitator like me, you can do so. Please make your comments, send me a message, send me an email to julio@juliobarroco.com, and I will have my own full pleasure in helping you do so. And I'll give you the full details of the process and whatever is needed. This is the first and the first part of this life. The second is my own journey told in a way that you can use it to put time, energy, attention, and thought processes onto it all, which is by my favorite way of doing it, which is by books. So I will bring some books and I will start right now. The first one is the full known Alquimista, The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. It was my first, to the best of my ability to recall, purpose-driven book that I've read, and I was blown away by the book because it told a story about a shepherd, Santiago, that went around the world finding his own personal legend, or searching for his own personal legend, and then he went on to many adventures, and he found lots of things that are truly crucial for a life well lived. And so this book found me when I was in college. I was taking my bachelor in economics at ISEG, our own Portuguese, one of the public institutions here in Portugal for learning economics, for getting a degree in economics. And I was getting many doubts about my path. Oh my God, I don't like this. What am I doing with my life? And then, after I've read the book, I decided, no, okay, this is nice, but this is a seed. This is a seed for my path. I will use this. I will use this for getting my hopes alive, for getting my flame alive. But I'm not able to go walk around the world right this time. I can't do it. So I put it aside, but I've get the seed planted onto my own life. And then many years later, I went on to the transition that you already know, I believe so. I've quit my job and I've started the adventure, really the adventure which this book propels, without leaving land, without leaving my own country as such, but making many trips, if you want to consider those, in the realm of understanding, in the realm of learning, in the realm of getting myself a clearer and fuller picture of what I am and what are my strengths. And the second book that I want to bring you is a book which is, I put a cover, a new cover. I bought this book second-handly. It's a book from Dame Rudyard, which is called by an astrological mandala, a cycle of transformations, and its symbolical phases is around what they call the Sabian symbols. And this book is much more focused onto my life purpose, at the way I perceived it, needed at the time. I felt I needed to have mastery onto the meaning generation, and I believe that the set of 360 zodiac degree symbols were the, although crazy it may sound, it was the school needed for me, my own gym of meaning, in order to get onto the next stage of proficiency, of mastery in helping my people, my clients, finding purpose onto their lives. Because these are 360 symbolic representations which convey human meaning into the full spectrum of life, including human evolution as such. So I know this is way out of the box for many people, but that really strike the lightning bolt into my learning curve at the time, 2012, 2013, yes. And then I went studying deeply this book and this set of symbols, and then I studied some other couple set of symbols, and then I really went deep into the symbolics of life and how we human beings generate and create meaning. And I believe that's crucial for the type of work that I do. So I really much cherish this book. And then Turning Pro. Turning Pro is not a journey book as such, but it is a book that made me re-engage and reconnect with the necessity of having practicality, of having routine into my own day-to-day practices, and reigniting my necessity of getting more results, because I was getting trouble at the time. Yes, the troubles didn't go out, but at the time it was very hard. I was getting kicked by life because I was getting very in serious trouble in getting by, and this book put me again in a warrior type of frame, in playful and creative terms, and it was very important for me. I transcribed by hand with this pen, not this one, but a pen like this entire book onto pages and pages and pages, just for getting the message into my bones, into my cells. It was really a rocky type of moment. Yes, one of those moments. Another set of those later came. And the next book about purpose journey is the Book of Mirdad. The Book of Mirdad came to me, or I went with this book by Mihail Naimi, because another author that I've read, Mr. Osho, recommended this book as one of the greatest and marvelous books he ever come across. And my own child, Raphael, was ready to born, and I was thinking to myself, what is the book that I want to be reading when my lovely child comes to life? And I want to read the very best book possible. What book can I read? And then, I recall this guy talking about the Book of Mirdad is the best book he ever read. And then I went straight to the book, and it happened. I was reading the book when the kid went into the kid and the mother went into child with labor. Yes, and it was really incredible. It was incredible because this book reports the history of a monastery and a monk who goes to a monastery, and he's really a pure, enlightened, in the very best way possible type of person. And this book portrays all the challenges, all the evils, all the things that come into his path, and also the beauty, the miracles of his life and of his way of walking, in him trying to be the very best he can be. It was a wonderful book to read, on the cusp of Raphael's born. So I love this book, and I'm really, really, really grateful for this book. The second book, it's the second book, the fifth, the fifth book, the next book, what I'm going to say, is a classic onto the purpose-driven journey. It's the mandatory book for the purpose-driven journey professional or facilitator. It's the book by Joseph Campbell, the great methodologist, The Hero with a Thousand Faces. He basically explains in this classic, his major work, the monomyth type of journey, which is portrayed in all major myths around the world, according to his research. And why this is book? Why did I put this book? It's not because it is a major book around. Well, it is a reason, but it's not the main reason. The main reason is because I was reading this book when my father passed away. Yes, I was reading the stages, the hero stages related with that event. Yes, and I was getting a very deep level of understanding and peace from doing so. I was reading this book before the funeral. I was reading the book after the funeral. I was reading the book sitting into the grass near a tree, just getting a sense of it all. I just having the time for making my own reflections, my own healings, perhaps, my own grievance. So it was a very important book. And it reminded me that the thing that I was going through, it was really an universal type of thing. It was not personal as such. So I love this book, and it gave me strength in order to deal with other things that went at that time. Yes. Next, mastery. I don't adhere to all of the ideas of this author and of this book. This is the book by Mr. Robert Greene. Yes. But this book really struck the chord at the time, especially at the second time I've read it, because it was after my father passed away. It was after the Mr. Joseph Campbell book. And I was, in a sense, healed, so to speak, and I was feeling a deep urge to really, really have all the power, all the strength possible to continue on to my path. And so I did the same thing I did with the book by Mr. Stephen Pressfield, Turning Pro. I picked up the pen and I wrote more than 60%, and this is a big book, more than 60% of the book, I believe so, by hand. Really, really get the stories onto my veins, onto my cells, and really getting more than the author interpretations, although they are nice, they are okay, they are more than okay, they are very inspiring. The thing is that I don't agree with the worldview that he has. But that's one of the things that I like in this book, because I don't agree with this whole worldview. It's very much needed in order for me to understand and have empathy, again speaking about empathy, about other worldviews, that are not my own and dealing with those, having the tools for dealing with those. So this was a very important book also at this time and really made my blood boil. Yes, I was at vacation at my ex-partner dad's house. They were taking bath, going to the beach, and all the stuff. I don't care. I was single-mindedly. Yes, very strange guy. I am a nerd. I was very single-handedly at the time. I love beach. I love all of that. But at the time, I was like a little bit obsessed with the message of the book. So I was really, really with the book in my full deliberate practice. The next one, The Writer's Journey. It's a sort of user-friendly treatment of the hero's journey, the monomyth that Mr. Campbell spoken about in his book. So, this book is the most practical book that I know about the hero journey structure of Mr. Joseph Campbell. And that's the thing that struck me the most. I liked the book, yes, I liked it very much. It is a book for writers, especially for screenwriters. Yes, it's a book mostly developed for the screenwriter, Hollywood screenwriter, to be clear, because it's an industry all and by itself. Yes, people are paid to write scripts that don't go to movies. Yes, the whole industry is, the business model of the industry is built upon that premise. And this book, it's full of exercises, examples, case studies of movies, that Hollywood movies. So it's a very practical book for you to have into yourself the lens, the filter in which to absorb and reflect onto Hollywood movies, nurturing your own purpose. That's why I'm recommending it to you. And now I'm seeing your comment, Julieta. You absolutely carry the gift of communication. Oh, thank you so much. You are so kind. You are being very kind. Thank you. This is the main issue with this book. If you want to do the exercises, okay. If you don't, if you read this book, you will understand many things applying to your life purpose just for reading it. And it's wonderful because then you can better connect what you read in movies with what you see in movies with what you read in personal development books, self-help, creative books, whatever. So this is a book that connects with that of the Sabine symbols and the mandala, the Dan Rudyard book I've mentioned about the 360 set of symbols for the zodiac. This is the practical, the mundane, the worldly view of it. So it is a great pairing. So next book. I love this book. I love this author. I love these books all around. An Astrological Triptych by Dan Rudyard, and he calls it The Illuminate Road. I love this book. In fact, it's a trilogy. It's not a single book. Yes, it's a geekier type of book. It's a book for geeks of purpose. I am. This book has 3 books in it. This mostly is the gifts of the spirit, in which the author, Mr. Dan Rudyard, treats the purpose journey around the zodiac according to a set of gifts. Each gift for a zodiac sign. There are 12 with more truth. And so I love this one, and this is the first value proposition of the book. I really loved it. I love the guy. He's quite of a thinker. He's a great philosopher. He's a genius of the New Age, in my perspective. He will be fully acknowledged in years to come, in my interpretation of his genius. I really believe he's a major genius, yes. And so, this is the first book. The second book is The Way Through, that he presents 12 basic challenges fully connected with a purposeful journey, according to the houses or the areas of life that we all have, according to astrology, yes, but that fully translates onto the mandala of areas of life into coaching. And that's the beauty of it, in my perspective. And then he presents the challenges and the fully perspective onto the solutions in order to deal with it. We deal and overcome the challenges. So that's why I love the way through. And then the third one is what he calls the illuminated road, in which he interprets the stars and the planets, in this case, the celestial bodies, onto purposeful terms. In what way they make us into gods and goddesses into flesh, into full purposeful persons. I love this book. I study this book a lot. I read this book many times. I love it. And so it's impossible not to mention it. Next book. Another for geeks book. It's The Labors of Hercules. Also onto the perspective of astrology, an astrological interpretation by Mrs. Alice Bailey. Why I love this book? Well, this book was recommended to me by a professor back in 2011 to 2012, Vera Faria Leal. Then we part ways many years ago, and we then kept in touch. But she made this recommendation, and I loved it when I read it. That was one of the seeds that only years later I recalled, and I went for it, because I only read this book back in 2017. Sorry, I only read this book in 2017, so more than 5 years later, her recommendation, and it was amazing. I would love this book because it is an interpretation of the ancient myth of Hercules, also according with zodiac, yes, and it was amazing because the tests and challenges of Hercules were incredibly useful for me to understand my own challenges, and especially because I have a memory. When I was a child, I believe I've told about that memory. Of not, I will tell it now. That I was into my lap, my father's lap. I was sitting in my father's lap. Maybe I was 3 years old, 4 years old, and he was reading me The Labors of Hercules with the Coogan-Larousse encyclopedia opened. My father was reading me The Labors of Hercules. And one thing I know for sure, I didn't get the labors as such, but one thing I get at the time. I've gotten the idea that my father think that I was a hero, that my father think that I was a kind of Hercules, and that he was preparing me for the path of an Hercules. And so I was blown away by this interpretation decades after it all happened. And in fact, after my father died, and I was blown away by the sheer demonstration of love that this story made me feel around my own father and his intents, because we didn't get the most near life paths, especially onto this hand, near his death. And then I was reading this book and I was getting so much love, so much understanding, so much idealization and dreaming around what being a father is, also around my own challenges in life, about my fatherly love expression. And so it was a major contribution into my life path. And of course it's very purposeful driven. It really is a purposeful driven, because the ancient Greeks believe that when we fulfill our own purpose in life. That we, after we die, we became stars, and even depending on the type of achievements that we've made, that we've become full constellations, full-blown constellations. And this book associates the labors of Hercules with constellations and with zodiac signs, with a plethora and richness of symbolism that is really, really beautiful. And it has another plus, that it's written by a woman. And in my perspective, when I read books written by women, I get the sense that they treat with a nurturing sense this type of realities better, or I don't know, better, but in a way that make me feel more complete in when I reflect around it. Maybe it's my own understanding of it, or bias maybe, but it really struck the chord. So I really want to recommend this onto you. Next one. The Origins and History of Consciousness by Mr. Eric Newman, which is a Jungian author. For those of you who don't know which is a Jungian, it's like a disciple of a student, a distinguished student of Mr. Carl Jung, which was one of the foremost shrinks, or psychiatrists, if you prefer, and awareness investigators of the 20th century. And he left a full-blown school of other thinkers, such as Mr. Joseph Campbell and this Mr. Newman and many others, including some others that I haven't put on this pile of books. But the main thing about Mr. Newman, the main thing for me, is that he complements the notion of monomyth by Mr. Campbell. He stresses three main myths in order for us to fully live our purposeful life. And then I tend to associate my own journeys, the journey of discovery, the journey of transition, and the journey of excellence, to the myths, the three myths that he brings. The first myth is the myth of creation, that he studies. The second myth is the myth of the hero, which Mr. Joseph Campbell calls the monomyth. And the third myth is the myth of enlightening, or the myth of complete transformation. This is a very beautiful, because he associates the myth of creation to the Ouroboros, yes, of the snake biting his own tail, and coupling it with the myth of the Great Mother, Mother Gaia, our planet, and he associates the first myth about our own evolution as humans around those. And the second, he brings the monomyth of Joseph Campbell into different terms. The myth of the journey, of the hero, that he gets a calling and then he refuses the calling, then he finds a mentor, then he accepts the calling, go towards the calling, have a bunch of trouble, then he gets stuck dealing with that trouble, then he finds this deep challenge, which Mochulu is an enemy, then he slays the enemy, then he brings the Elixir back to his people, and then he creates a new world order, so to speak. I'm just making a really briefly description of the monomyth by Joseph Campbell. He does the same thing onto a different perspective, onto the psychoanalytical perspective. So this is one of the major things about this book. And the third thing about this book is that my favorite part of it, which is the thing that ultimately our lives are about love, and that the thing that transmutes the human being the deepest is love, around the myth of Isis and Osiris, the Egyptian god and goddess, that are put in reunion with the monomyth in many Hollywood films. Because in the end, as you know, the hero gets the girl he loves, or the hero as girl gets the guy she loves. So that's the main thing for me in this book. Indeed, bring me the understanding into abstract and deep proficiency terms, in terms of psychology of the archetypes, why love is so much of is so important for us. Why love is so important. This book brings me the answer. Because we nurture a deep need to reunion with all there is, onto the context of a relationship, or even considering the knowledge of all there is, like a yoga with God, which is the message from this myth of Isis and Osiris, which is, by the way, it's the main myth used in several schools of esoteric and spiritual knowledge across ages. That's one of the reasons this myth is so powerful, because it's a sort of a culminating myth for the person-made star human being, which is another term to say the purposeful consummation of what we are. Yes, next book, and I'm almost done. 3 more books to go. This is getting a little bit longer, but I believe it can worth. If you want to read some of the books, I believe it's worth your time. A Beginner Guide to Constructing the Universe. I love this book. Subtitled The Mathematical Archetypes of Nature, Art and Science. A Voyage from 1 to 10. This book puts another layer of understanding onto my own perspective, cognitively speaking, of course, around what is using universal principles, universal laws for creating change in myself and others. How can I better derive from my own life experiences deeper understandings that make reinforced sense onto all the other stuff that I studied, I've lived in my own life, my challenges, my grievances, my joys. And I found that this perspective, the Neo-Pythagoras perspective, the Neoplatonic perspective, the numbers perspective, seen as sacred, is the thing that strikes a chord onto my abstract needs of considering these types of processes. So this was the book, and this is a wonderful book because you see explanations around nature, around arts, culture, civilization, society, economics, games, all sorts of human endeavors. It's a lovely book, and it's a wonderful book for educating a child, in my perspective. It's a wonderful book for sharing things with kids, for sharing life lessons, and I would love to start to make even more so, beyond some sessions with clients, some exercises that are here and that I use them. And I would love to, the idea of making those with my son when he's ready, with my son Raphael. So I love this book. I was very inspired by this book, and I spent many hours reading and transcribing passages from this book, but not by pen, this time not by pen. I've used my my evolved system of making so, coupling Evernote and more or less sophisticated note making that then I connect, then I classify it by tags, and then I put into my own personal index of themes. I have index for the journeys, my handcrafted indexes of references, of steps, of tools, you name it. Well, let's move on. Next book. Love this book. The Artist's Journey. Another book by Mr. Steven Pressfield, the second of this pile, by him. And The Wake of the Hero's Journey and the Lifelong Pursuit of Meaning. I love this book because it's for the creative, purpose-driven people. And since I believe that we are all, when living our own purpose, creative by nature, whatever type of endeavor we may have. And I love Mr. Steven Pressfield's books. His perspectives are so sharp, are so clean. He's such an accomplished writer. He's very connected with these times that we are living, because he's still alive. He's still writing. He's all types of books. He also teaches. He's a wonderful person. I've had some personal contacts and communications with him. He was so much kind. I even sent him gifts to his place. Yes, I've sent him a little statue. Yes, not even more short as these statues. I've sent him a statue to his home, and he accepted. He was a gentleman. He accepted my gift. I sent him a Templar, a Portuguese Templar statue, and he loved it. Because we had already communicated. I've wrote him some emails some years back, thank him for his works and demonstrating my own gratitude, expressing my skill set in order to fully acknowledge his role into my own path. So this book, why do I love this book? Because when the time this book came to my hands, and it came, let me check it, 2018, 2 years ago. So I love this book because I was thinking about a conceptual new age around a new full-blown awareness consideration of history in one of my crazy projects that this one didn't lift the foot off the ground. Yes, because it's very crazy. It's like purpose-driven history, but I didn't get the time, the energy, and all the other stuff that needs to have place into this life in order to full commit myself unto it. So I put aside the Logostoria, the branch of knowledge that I intended to launch with the book written by myself around how to consider the purpose of history and make it into a branch of knowledge. And I was reading this book with that intent, and this guy put it in very simple terms. How do you build a life of purposeful works? And it's wonderful just because of it. I will not spoil it anymore. If you bought it and you read it, you will love it, I believe so. And I fully recommend that you make, because this book has no index. I believe it's deliberate by Mr. Steven Pressfield, because it's wonderful to make an index all by yourself and to get that understanding of what really means to have a purposeful driven journey. So this is almost the last one, and the last book that I want to speak about today to finish this live is this one. I already spoken about this book. Keep Going by Mr. Austin Kleon. 10 ways to stay creative in good times and bad. I love this book. And why I love this book? Well, not because it's a major work of art or its incredible achievements or whatever. I love this book because it's a reminder that I keep near myself and I just look at it in these big letters, and then I recall myself I must keep going, doing my stuff. So that's the first thing. The second, it reminds me of an online course that I have, which is the Mapa da Mudança in Portuguese or the Breakthrough Map in English, because I have two versions of it, both in Udemy, the platform. Go check it if you want, or ask me for the link and I will send you if you like. Because this book fully acknowledges my last stage of that map, and really is the stage of keep going after we do our fair share of considering reality, of unleashing a big dream, of seeing and sensing possibilities, of putting the very best plan or life structure in place possible. The fifth stage is the stage of keep going. Keep the fucking going. Keep the fucking going. Keep the fucking going. That's the message I want to stress right now. I'm not the slang type of guy, like you know. But when all things are in place, to the best of our ability, that's what is all about, is keep going. Now without the slang. So this is the message of this book, and I love this message. And it's a message that I really believe it's much needed in times like this. In COVID-19 times, in pre-COVID-19, in post-COVID-19, in pre and post, whatever. If we want to live the purposeful, driven life, we must keep going, doing our own best. Sometimes with more flair, with more fire into our own bellies, into our hearts, souls, we are more passionate. Other times more gently, more quietly, more laid back, more relaxed, more... Never mind. Bring the very... That was pretty clear, you said, Julieta. Yes, it was. Bring your best game to the very best of your ability. Going beyond biases, beyond others' expectations around what role you may have into life. Just bring your best game. And it will all worth it if you do so, I believe. And so, my dear friends, I hope this pile of books have helped. I hope you have taken notes. Yes. If you have any question, please send me a message. And feel free to share whatever remarks you need. And please keep striving for your thing. Keep going towards your dreams. Keep plunging into the very best you can access onto yourselves. Yes. Thank you so much for stopping by. And tomorrow I will talk about meaningful healing. In meaningful healing, I will stress the therapeutic benefits of generating meaning and striving, having, building a purpose. Please keep plunging towards your dreams. Take care. Bye-bye.